Ladies and gentlemen, from Formula One, Formula Drift, and a rider herself, please welcome to the Dealer Evolution stage, Laurette Nicoll.
Hi, folks. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us right after lunch. We really appreciate it. And Kip, we want to thank you so much for being here. My name's Laurette Nicoll. Next to me, I have Paul Langley, Chairman and CEO of the LeMans Corp, and Kip Podlewski.
Podlewski, yeah.
Podlewski. You can forgive me, sorry. Kip just joined us last minute. We're so grateful for your insights and thank you so much. Let's talk about what you think the current state of the market is. And Paul, I'd like to start with you, please.
Sure. Actually, it's considering it's not too bad, right? So 25, from the data I see, started pretty weak, but it kind of picked up the back half of the year. And I think the market's shifting, right? I think that the high-end market is still there. There's plenty of people that have the money, but they're looking for deals because they're a little bit uncertain on the market, so there's some good rebates. So the high-end's doing okay. I think the middle's a little bit tough, but what's really gaining traction is quality price point vehicles, and they're really seeing some big gains for a couple of brands that are doing exceptionally well with 15 to 20% gains. So there's a shift towards price point, but I think also another sign is the used market, and the used market is pretty strong. Yes, the values for used vehicles have decreased, but there's a lot of traction. And for our business and dealers, every time a bike changes hands, there's an opportunity for make it your own, more PG&A to bundle into the financing. So I think overall the market's doing quite well.
Okay. And Kip, you're an executive of the company. What are your responsibilities?
I'm responsible for all of our procurement and the logistics and trade compliance. So end-to-end supply chain, making sure we have all the right products to sell to our dealers and can get it from all over the world. And the word this year for us has been managing tariffs. That's definitely an area of heightened concern and heightened attention from our team.
Absolutely. And you've seen a lot of change since COVID. Can you talk about how I know we're brand new into 2026, but how the last couple of years have changed for you and the company?
Yeah, COVID was one of those unexpected events in many ways, and it really did impact the supply chain, and there was this bubble of unexpected demand in powersports where all of a sudden people that were having to be socially distant from each other turned to motorcycles, ATVs, snowmobiles, things like that, and wanted to participate. And so there was a real surge in demand. At the same time, the supply chain had a hard time responding in some ways. There was delays at ports, and you saw all the pictures of ocean vessels backed up in the ports and not able to bring product in. And so the world of supply chain was just trying to respond and get product and inventory to meet this unexpected surge in demand. And then that started to settle down, and all of this bubble of inventory started to hit dealers and to hit our warehouses. And then, for the last maybe year or two, there's been trying to right-size the inventory and make sure that we had in some cases, too much inventory and having to sell it through. Now, as tariffs started to come into the world, there was a concern of how that was going to impact the supply chain. And it hasn't impacted it in the same way of these big delays of transportation, but there has been a concern with most companies of just the uncertainty of the costs related to tariffs. And some companies were pushing ahead and buying ahead and trying to buy more product, and others were waiting. And so it's been this kind of lumpy demand cycle or supply cycle, and it's been hard to try to figure out, but the impact is starting to become a little bit more clear, and there's a little bit more stability, I'd say.
Yeah, and Paul, to Kip's point, it's impossible that we avoid talking about tariffs and sales tax. So how do we mitigate those two things? How do we mitigate tariffs?
Well, I'll let Kip speak to that because he manages our strategies. But it's just overall, it's a significant problem for all businesses, right? Because if you think about a tariff, it's a fee to encourage foreign companies to come and invest in U.S. manufacturing. But the deal is that it takes time. And if we could have said, as an administration, hey, here's a 10% tariff and you got 2 years to come and manufacture in the U.S., or we're going to charge you 40%, great, but no, bang, 50% tariffs, 125% tariffs, and it's a whack-a-mole, right? Which country's next on the list, and what's the next tariff that's coming? And for us and our suppliers, we can attempt to mitigate tariffs, but for instance, one manufacturer that did produce in the US was under pressure from US customers to reduce price, so they moved some production to China. Then there's 100+% tariffs, and then it's like, well, we got a facility in Brazil, let's move there. Now there's a 50% tariff, so quite frankly, there's a tremendous amount of turmoil, and it's not helpful to businesses. And one of the concerns that I have is that because there was a lot of proactive work by suppliers and distributors, many of the products sold in 2025 were really tariff-free, and the full impact of tariffs for our industry is going to take place somewhere around by March to June of 2026. So unfortunately, we're likely going to see some price increases. But now I'll turn it over to Kip that will tell you the ways that we are trying with our suppliers to mitigate some of these tariffs.
Yeah, it's complicated and many different opportunities on the tariff front. I mean, one of them simply is to just try to source where there's lower tariffs, and some of that can be bringing production back to the U.S. Some of it can be moving production from a very high tariff country to a lower tariff country, trying to manage the offsetting the cost through other ways of reducing costs in your business, and just trying to find ways to do that. There's the tax code, or the custom code itself is very complicated to understand, and just being able to understand it and learn what it takes allows you to do some optimization efforts and to employ strategies that can reduce the cost. But I don't know that there's one magic answer to do it. We've spent a lot of our time just making sure we do know what the tariffs are from every country and how we're sourcing it, what's the cost going to be. And in the end, I do think there is inflation that's happening. The prices are changing because of the cost of tariffs.
Yeah. So you guys are fighting so many different things. Can you also name how distributors can bring value during an economic downturn?
Sure. So I think pre-COVID, our company and some of our competitors would say, hey, we're one-stop shop dealers. So if you need something for a bike that's going to be on the lift tomorrow, or many of the parts you could sell and say, hey, I have one for you tomorrow, you could reliably call one of the distributors, right? And that part would be delivered, normally freight-free. And so that was it. The distributors were a one-stop shop. And then, of course, through COVID, it became very difficult, right? Because you just couldn't get the parts. So a dealer would order with us and all of our competitors. Whoever filled that back order first got the business. The rest were canceled. And so it created turmoil to where dealers were investing really too much in inventory of PG&A, where they wouldn't see returns, and then it became perhaps more difficult to manage cash flow. So I think today, and also through COVID, our company and probably our competitors, they had problems keeping their warehouses balanced because of the inconsistency of deliveries. But now we're kind of back to the normality of the seasonal business. And companies like ours, we make strong forecasts where we buy ahead and we're ready for the start of the season. So I think many dealers can look at a distributor as a one-stop shop where maybe instead of having, say, 30 different helmets, you can have all the different styles in the different size range, and then if the customer wants this style in this color, boom, no problem. The distributor's going to be able to drop ship that for you to the consumer, and they'll have it very quickly. So I think the dealer base can rely on the distributors to be a one-stop shop and also to help them compete in the omni-channel space.
And Paul, Kip, did you have something to add to that?
I was just going to add on to that. Some of the other things that we can do as distributors is just make sure there's a lot of cool products that customers want available. And so, of course, the core tenet of what we bring is having our warehouses full of the products that our customers want and be able to ship it quickly and get it there. But we also want to have good, cool products available. So shows like this is an opportunity to see what's new out in the market, what are some of the trends happening, and make sure we make those aware to the dealers and to the customers so that they're bringing stuff that the customers really want to the market. It's not just the transportational logistics, it's also figuring out what do people want, what are the trends, and there's all the service parts and all the products that just keep the vehicles running, but then there's all those neat, cool accessories and new innovations that are out there.
Yeah, and to your point, the logistic companies are really affecting a lot of dealers out there. So are there more ways that you can support the dealers?
I'll start with, the logistics companies do that well, but they're not power sports enthusiasts the way we are, and we really know the industry. And we have our sales team that knows the industry very well out there supporting our customers as well and doing the marketing and the product training and making sure that they know the products but also how to use them and what are the right fitments, what are the right applications, what are the new vehicles that are coming out and how do you accessorize those and how do you service those. And that's the value that I think a distributor like LeMans can bring that a logistics company just doesn't bring.
Paul, what trends are you seeing arise in the industry?
For me, we're seeing more business at a lower level because of a new customer. I think that from my perspective, we've swept through a generation of very risk-averse young adults, right, that spent all their time in front of a computer screen. They didn't like bicycles, okay. Their parents didn't want them to take any risk. They were all cuddled up, right? And they wasn't out there having fun on motorcycles, right? So for me, I see particularly Generation Alpha, right, which is anyone, I think, born later than 2010, right? They want to have fun, and they ride into schools on Super 73s and other electric motorcycles, right? And it's just fun. And they've got the bug, they felt the adrenaline, they felt the passion and the experience of riding. And so I think we're going to see, with time, a new generation of riders that join and sustain in power sports. The only problem is, sorry to say this, but they're going to want electric vehicles, and we have to be ready for that, right? Because they have no interest in ICE, right? My youngest kid, he wants nothing to do with internal combustion engines, unfortunately, right? But it's a different trend. But I think that there's the power sports industry is very sustainable but we as an industry have to work harder to give them proper training and give them opportunities to experience and try different machines. Like kind of bit like if you want to go skiing, you go to a ski resort, right? You can take your own skis, you can rent skis, but everything's there, the instruction's there. We as an industry need to do more to give potential riders these experiences. So we have some work to do, but I'm excited that the industry is not going to die off with us old guys, right? So I think it's going to sustain.
Right. How do we capitalize on the experience, on the experiential side of motorcycles?
Well, I think the industry has to come together through organizations like the MIC to really collectively lean in and build and provide the opportunities. And we can, and the MIC's got some tremendous programs right now that are going to build momentum over time. And we'd like to see all of the OEMs, including the American OEMs, join and be part of the MIC and collectively combine our resources to build these experiences.
I just want to add, I have the opportunity to go to a number of events through the year, events like this and the Sturgis Rally or the AIMExpo Rally in Milan. And what's exciting for me to see is there is a lot of interest. All of those events have been having record level of attendance the last couple of years. So you see the interest out there. So you can't necessarily correlate the number of new vehicles sold in a year to the level of interest people have still in power sports. I think it's still very much there. It's still very much relevant. We just have to continue to adapt to what that is. Who are the consumers and what do they want? But it's encouraging for me to see, especially as an enthusiast myself and somebody that wants to sell them a lot of parts to keep their vehicles going. But
building on that positivity, what do you think are some of the biggest opportunities ahead for 2026?
I mean, I guess starting with just to build on what Paul said is this next generation consumes information a little bit differently than we do, guys like Paul and I, and they're very digitally connected, and they do their shopping that way. They're looking at products, they're trying to find the applications that fit them that way, and social media is a very common part of the daily life of that consumer. And so we have to be able to meet them where they're at. And that is in the physical dealership as well. That's another positive trend I think we've seen this year. Maybe, Paul, you can talk about that. But we've seen some indications where people are returning more to the actual brick and mortar dealership. They want to see touch and feel products. They want to try on that helmet. They want to see that new wheel or whatever they want to put on their vehicle. They might actually execute their purchase online, but they still want to come and see the product in physical form, or they want to see it at a rally or in an event as well. So.
Yeah, there's definitely, from the data we see, there's definitely been a shift back to brick and mortar stores for some of the consumers, right? So obviously the brick and mortar stores, they have to have a plan. They have to treat parts and accessories and service as profit centers, right? And they have to address the customer when the customer walks in and help them to make their choices. And then if they don't have it, then they can rely on the distributors to fulfill that order to the customer's home in a short time. So I think even if bike sales or motorcycle sales have been slowing down, there's so many opportunities with PG&A, particularly on used sales. But I think some of the dealers have not been focused enough on the parts department, on the service department to generate revenue for them.
Just to add on, I think the thing we can all do is just encourage participation in the sport. Whether that's a a sale, whether it's a new or used sale, if somebody's got a vehicle in their garage, get them out riding. I mean, out riding then leads to part sales, it leads to service, and hopefully it'll lead to another vehicle in the future. But anything that we collectively can do, and that's another thing that we as distributors can do. LeMans is very active in sponsoring rides, sponsoring racers, sponsoring events that encourage people to be out and riding and participating in the sport. I think that's the thing all of us can do the most to make sure our industry stays strong and healthy, is get people out having fun riding. Once you're doing it, you're going to want to continue to do it.
So you gentlemen think tapping into the lifestyle is a strong way to go? Yeah, that makes sense. Well, we have reached the end of our panel. Gentlemen, do you have any final thoughts that you would like to leave the crowd with? I think we've done a really good job of covering everything. We had a call earlier, I guess at the end of last year, and we talked about what we wanted to accomplish, and I feel like we've done a really great job there. So Kip and Paul, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and your thoughts. It's a joy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.